People like an under-communicator until they need that person to hear them and understand them, until they need that person to see them. And then they want them to be a great communicator, someone who values who they are and knows who they are. Take from a work setting. You often hear, which would you rather have, a micromanager or someone who doesn't value you and doesn't talk or communicate, an under-communicator? Well, in my decade of experience, I've had both. And honestly, I would always take the micromanager because my work ethic speaks for itself. I have nothing to hide. I'm great at what I do, and I'm a person of integrity. I value communication, and I have seen and been the victim of an under-communicator. When someone doesn't really know who you are, when someone doesn't communicate their expectations, what they want from you, they don't really care to know who you are, they don't communicate, that's a liability for you. Because they don't know what you bring to the table. They don't know who you are. They don't know your value. That's an issue. So when you need to be heard the most, you won't be. With a micromanager, they know exactly what you do. They know your value. They probably know your weaknesses and your strengths. They are very detailed in their knowledge of what you bring to the table. That's a value to you. But it's not to those that are lazy and don't like accountability. It's a double-edged sword. They're both very annoying. But as for safety of your career, as for long-term value and who you are with the company and where you're at, I would highly suggest you take that micromanager. Because at least they care to know you as a person. And when, God forbid, shit hits the fan, they'll know exactly what to say. They'll know exactly the situation. Most likely. Now, of course, there's toxic, negative versions that could happen. There could be very horrible micromanagers. And that's totally different. That's something that needs to be reported right away. Yeah, don't touch it. But one of the closest supervisors I've ever had that I literally cried when I left to a new position, I am still friends with to this day. She was a micromanager. And her and I are very close, and she was the best supervisor I've ever had. And the worst supervisor I've ever had was someone who had no idea who I really was, had no idea what I did for them and what I brought to the table. So when I needed to be heard and seen and understood the most, they had no idea what my value truly was. They had a bias, an agenda, and a massive ego. It was always about them. Take the micromanager. Just word of advice. The same applies to marriage. The healthiest relationships and friendships are the ones based on great, healthy communication and honesty. My husband and I have been married 11 years. We've known each other for 15. And we used to bicker and argue all the time. That's because we over-communicated. We were always communicating. Probably, like I said, over-communicated. When we had an issue or complaint or anything that just nagged on us, we always brought it to each other. We never held on to it. We never hesitated. Same applies. It's better and healthier over-communicate than be silent and not truly know the value of the other person. A lot of people don't like, bless you, a lot of people have a hard time communicating because sometimes that involves confrontations and hard conversations that are difficult to have. But that's a part of life, and that ends up being something that you need to work on personally. But that truly is something that, from personal experience, it would save your life and save many situations and relationships, perhaps jobs in the future, if you took this advice.